One, two, 1, 2, 3, let's go! Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, and welcome to the Feedback Loop here on Studio Live today, where today we are talking about a topic that is near and dear to my heart, something that's going to hopefully be of use and of interest to a lot of you folks, and that is collaboration. How do we collaborate online with other humans? It is easier to do than ever, but with that ease comes a whole lot of potential pitfalls. What I want to do today is to make it simple for you, to give you my top 10 of them tips. It's got to be top 10s, don't there, of how you can collaborate online. Now, full disclosure, I haven't done a whole lot of collaborating, so this is where I want you to chime in. If you're here on the live stream, you're awesome. If you're here on the replay, you're also awesome. If you're here live, you can put your comments, your questions, your advice, your suggestions here, and we will come back and chat about that. If you're watching on the replay, no problem. Just drop a comment down below afterwards. I go and I read and respond to every single one of them. So yes, I spend a lot of time down in comments, but I want to make sure that I get to everything because I don't know everything. I learn as much from you folks as hopefully you learn from me doing this. So let's go through what we're going to actually do in this video so that if you're going to spend an hour with me, you know what's in store, what we're going through. So I've got a couple of quick stories of some recent collaborations that I've done, which will just take a couple of minutes right off the start. And then we're going to give a summary. So I'm going to go through all 10 tips really quickly. So if you've only got 10 or 15 minutes and you've got to get going, hang around for that first 10 to 15 minute chunk and you'll have at least got all of the tips. You can go away and you can start collaborating. Number 3, I'm going to say hello to the folks who are here live and answer any questions. So if you're here live at the moment, start throwing your questions down there now, start throwing your comments, and I will get to them when we get to that section in the middle. We're then going to do a deep dive. So I'm going to jump into each of the 10 tips and talk, maybe rant a little bit more about each of those. And then we're going to close out with any final questions and my summary and my advice to you for moving forward in your collaborations as well. So I hope that sounds good. And I hope you are all ready to start learning about collaborating, helping me learn about collaborating. Let's get going. So I prefaced it by saying, yes, oh, by the way, who am I? I didn't do my introduction bit. So you may be brand new to the channel and you don't know who I am or why you should even listen to me. So my name is Pete and I run Studio Live today, which as I mentioned is about helping you create music. If you like to have tutorials, tips and tricks about how to record music, but also a little bit of ranting about some of the musical topics, then this channel is probably going to be for you. So if you're not already subscribed, I do recommend that. If you get some value out of this content today, I do ask that you hit the like button on this video, and that really just shows me that I'm hitting the mark and I'm putting content out there that you're finding valuable. And if you've got someone else that maybe you're planning to collaborate with or you'd like to collaborate with, well, hey, send them a link to this video. It could be a good conversation starter. You could say, hey, why don't we collaborate? And here's 10 tips for how we can get started. Anyway, let's jump in. So I've had 2 recent collaborations. The first I'll talk about was audio. The second was video. So the audio collaboration I did is I did a cover of Handle with Care. Now, I'm going to link that, or if Steve, who's here on the channel, Steve, if you can grab the video of that, the YouTube video that Ron put up. So I collaborated with Steve, Ron, Mike, and Brian over on the Garageband users Facebook group. So 5 of us collaborating on the classic Traveling Wilburys song Handle with Care. And we'll talk more about some of the details a bit later, but it was a super fun experience. It required a lot of coordination, a lot of organization. Thankfully, my buddy Ron did all the producing, so I was able to just do my singing and my guitar parts and hand them over. We'll talk more about how that works later. And then it just came together. Ron did an amazing video, which I will link. Steve will hopefully put it in the comments here, and I'll make sure it's linked in the description so you can check that one out as well. But super fun experience, really cool to do in GarageBand. We use the GarageBand collaboration tools, which we'll talk a lot more about a little bit later, which meant we could all work on the same project in GarageBand iOS. It worked quite well, but did have a few hurdles, and we'll talk about all of those. So audio, can't recommend that highly enough, doing an audio collaboration, working on a song and doing a cover song for the first collaboration that I'd done in a while was a good thing because you didn't have to worry so much about the artistic side. Yes, we had to interpret someone else's song, but it wasn't completely brand new to us. So it worked really well. It came out well. I enjoy working with these other very talented musicians, so you can check that one out. The second collaboration that I did recently, in fact, very recently, just last week, and the video actually came out only about 8 hours ago, and that was with Mike Enjo over on Creative Source. So we did an interview. So yes, video collaborations are a little bit different, but they're the same sort of ballpark, the same sort of thing. When you're collaborating with someone on a video, you still need to have a lot of the same things in mind, and it kind of goes with anything. Any online collaboration, you're using similar tools, you're doing similar things, and you need to keep similar things in mind. So if you haven't checked that one out, I will also link to that in the description of this one and in the comments so that you can check that out. So Mike Enjo over on Creative Source, he has another great channel. He's from Australia. Well, he's from Australia, then the UK, then back to Australia. He's over in Perth, and he has a great channel all about plugins, all about how to create music, the same sort of stuff I do, but a little bit more angled towards the desktop, whereas I very much focus on mobile and iOS, iPad, and iPhone creating. So that is my two recent collaborations. So I'm fresh off of a couple of collaborations, which is why I wanted to talk about this topic today. So I'm going to throw a question right up the front here as well to those that are watching live, and for you to comment on as well if you're watching this, and that is, have you collaborated? And what piece of advice would you have if you have collaborated for someone else? What's the number one thing you think is important when you're collaborating with someone else? And even if you haven't collaborated on music, if you've done a video collaboration or a document, or you've done some other collaboration in your life that you've used online tools to do, what's your advice? I think it would be handy to collect and pull together all of that advice as well. All right, let's jump in to these top 10 tips. Do you like my mug, by the way? These are available, studiolivetoday.com/merch. Actually, I've only got the black ones there at the moment, but if you really want a white one, let me know. I'll find a way to hook you up. Alrighty, let's go through the top 10. So this is going to be the quick fire. So we're going to go into more detail, but this is my summary of the top 10. And I want to say thanks to Steve, to Ron, to Brian, to Mike Holmes, to all of the folks that I've collaborated with, to Mike Enjo for this video collaboration, because I asked these sort of questions as we went along, and I also threw it out there to the Garageband users Facebook group and got some feedback from those folks as well. So I wanted to just say thank you to them, because this isn't just all my own thoughts. This is what other people have told me that their ideas are too, because again, the sum of the parts is better than the whole, or whatever that teamwork phrase that you use is, which is very poignant and very relevant for collaborations, because yeah, you do better. So that's probably the number one thing. Just before we get to that is, why would you want to collaborate? Why wouldn't you just want to sit in your audio cave like I am here and do your own thing? Well, it's because you can get very stale. You can get into your own rut, you're doing your own thing, and you're not opening up your mind and opening up your horizons to other opportunities. And I probably would have never done a cover of Handle with Care if it wasn't suggested, and if I didn't have these cool people to collaborate with. So it's a really good idea, because it does push you out of your comfort zone. It helps you work with other humans, which can be a good thing. We are humans. We are very collaborative people. We're tribal people. Getting together with another tribe and creating music is a very cool thing to do, or video, or whatever other online collaboration. All right, let's go through these top 10. These are in no particular order, so sorry if you like the whole countdown style, but I just wanted to throw out my 10 tips here. So the number one thing I'm going to put out here, and this doesn't really, unless you're actually looking to monetize, it probably doesn't really matter. But I'm putting this here because I've seen a lot of collaborations come undone because there's not a really clear idea about who owns the end result. Is it, if it's two people, is it 50-50? Can one person then take that song and release it and start monetizing? If they do, what is that relationship? Now, yeah, you don't have to sit down and write up a contract or a business agreement or go completely nuts, but just keep that in mind, that if there is going to be a formal official type release, make sure you talk about that up front. You don't want to be getting it all done and then you got four people all squabbling over who actually gets to own this or who's going to actually release it, if that's something that you wanted to do at the end. So keep that in mind. The second one, and closely related to that, is, are you going to have a producer? And if you do have a producer, then who is that going to be and what is their role going to be? So we had, as I mentioned in ours, we had Ron, and for my video collaboration, Mike was definitely producing the video. So that meant that I knew very clearly what my role was. I was a collaborator, so I was providing that information in the form of music or video or ideas, and then the producer was actually pulling it together. If you have all of the people trying to be the boss and trying to pull it together, it cannot work. So you usually need a leader. You usually need one person that actually manages the project or produces the project. So that's the number two thing I keep in mind. Number three, decide on your software and your platforms that you're going to use as early as you can. So you can get into trouble when you've got different people on different platforms, but only really if you don't know what they are going in. So you can collaborate across platforms. So when I collaborated with Mike, he uses a completely different software. He uses the DaVinci editing software on his PC. He was recording on an iPhone. I was recording on my webcam using OBS Studio. As long as we just defined that clearly and said, I will send you an MP4 with 44.1 kilohertz audio, 24-bit, and then you can add that to your project and do what you need to do with it, then that's fine. And it's the same with music. If you're like, I'm going to use GarageBand and you're going to use Logic, that's fine. I'm on Reaper, you're on GarageBand. We just need to learn how we're going to do that, how we're going to send the stems, how we're going to actually manage that. So think about what software and platform you are going to use early on. Number 4, what is the process going to actually be? So strongly related to that, the process side. So if you have a central owner, who's that going to be? And what are you going to do? Are you going to share the project files? Or are you going to share the stems, which are just the wave files, the individual audio files? How are you going to manage MIDI? How are you going to manage mixing and mastering and all of the rest of it? So what is your process going to actually be? If you can map that out early, or at least have an understanding of what it's going to be, that can really help you out. Communication. How will you share information? So for the last 2 projects I've worked on, we used Facebook Messenger. So we created a Facebook Messenger group for our Handle with Care cover. And for Mike and myself, it was very easy. We just collaborated using Facebook directly, Facebook Messenger. And it just is important to have that one place that's going to be separate from everywhere else, because you don't want to bug a bunch of other people if you're in a larger group with your collaboration. And you also want to make sure you have one place. So don't have emails going around and then private conversations and then other conversations. We have the ability to have these group chats and group conversations, keep everyone completely up to date, regardless of whatever you're going to do. So if you're using group email, that's fine. If you're using Messenger, that's fine. Keep everyone up to date. Number 6 is set a goal for an end date. And I say this a lot in everything that I do, in all my music production, but very importantly, for a collaboration, you want to know where's the end goal. So where are you actually going for? What's the release date? What are you actually trying to achieve? Because if you've got someone that wants to be a little bit perfectionistic and wants to take 3 months, whereas the other person wants to get it released in 1 week, well, you need to decide on that. You can't be doing that. And the other risk is, if you don't have a deadline, or at least an idea of when you want it out, it can kind of go on forever, right? Have you ever had those things? Have you ever had those tasks where you're like, I will do that, but you don't actually set a date? Well, it just keeps going. Like, I've had songs that I've been working on for literally years because I never said I'm going to finish this song by this date. So set yourself an end date and you can aim towards that. Quick coffee break. I think I need a little sting that I just play every time I have a sip. It's just like, Pete needs a drinks break, do-do-do-do. And then we're back on. Clearly I need a producer. I need someone to be sitting over there running the board. So number 7 is this is more of a technical one, but keep your levels low. Yes, your guitar solo may be epic, but don't sort of mix it and compress it and sort of write it to the track at a really high, really pumping volume. You don't want to go completely raw tracks either. Like, if you want to compress it, or if you want to add some reverb, you can do that, but don't go nuts with it, because you are then going to have to mix it, and someone's going to have to mix it and master it eventually. And if they've got a whole bunch of really hot tracks that are right up here, it's a lot harder to bring things down. It's easier to bring things up in a mix, a lot harder to bring them down. And when you've got a bunch of people, if you're doing a song by yourself, you kind of understand that. You're like, okay, I've got 8 tracks. I need to make sure all those 8 tracks are sitting around 50% volume. Otherwise, I'm going to have this big muddy mess. But when you're only doing 2 of those tracks, yeah, it can be a lot harder to remember to not push your volume and to not do things quite so loud. So keep that in mind when you're recording and then sharing those stems or those recordings as well. Who will be mastering? Are you going to master it? Are you going to release it? How will you release it? This is number 8. How you will release it? Will you make a video? Do you have an awesome guy like Ron who's going to edit together a killer video that you can actually then use for your track? And then who's going to actually share it? What's that actually look like? Because yes, you want to all be able to share it or do whatever you want with it. But as I talked about sort of in recent videos, the last couple of videos, if you actually want to promote this, or you actually want to, just get it out there to people, get people listening to it, you don't want that to be confusing. You want a central spot, which I've breached my own rule here because I said at the start, oh, Steve, can you grab that link? I should have been totally organized and said, the link is right there. You can watch the video. But yeah, and if you can use things like the link shortening, so just go to bit.ly/awesomecollab and then people can check it out. So yeah, just keep in mind who will actually be doing that and how that releasing is really going to actually work. Number 9, we're nearly there to the end, so you can get away and start collaborating if you need to move on. Number 9 is to choose your collaboration partners carefully. So I don't know if you've been part of any online forums or online groups around music, and there's always someone at some stage that's like, yo, who wants to collab? I make R&B. And sorry, I'm not just pointing at R&B people. Let's say, yo, who wants to collab? I make punk. Let's just go with that. Yeah, and other people go like, yeah, I love punk. Like, okay, the other person loves punk. Will they gel with you? Do they have the right personality to work with you? Do they even play the same sort of punk? Are they playing like old school Sex Pistols and you're playing like new wave Green Day and Blink-182? You don't actually know that. So maybe spend more time getting to know people's music and then listen to some of their music and then talk to that person and then work out if you need to collaborate. And this is where being a part of an active community is so important, as opposed to just throwing it out there and saying, hey, I'm a singer, anyone play guitar? Well, yeah, a lot of people play guitar, but they're not necessarily going to be a great guitarist, and they're not necessarily going to be the sort of person that you might want to be spending the next week, month, year collaborating with and communicating with every day. So that is something to keep in mind. Luckily, the 2 projects I've just worked on, Mike and Joe is a legendary dude, so we got on really, really well. And the other one, with my 4 friends over in Garageband users, they are also champion gentlemen. So it all worked exceptionally well because we followed a lot of these rules. Now, we didn't follow all of them. Don't think that I'm sitting up here going, yes, we nailed it. We had plenty of challenges along the way, which we're going to talk about when we dive into more of the detail. But yeah, these things are things to keep in mind. And if you can do them earlier, you know what they say, proper planning prevents poor performance. I don't know why they say that, but they do. The 5 Ps. I think I learnt that in a marketing management course like 20 years ago. Anyway, it's so true. Proper planning prevents poor performance. And if you plan to do it, you plan to fail, you plan to succeed, you'll succeed. If you don't plan, you'll fail. Something like that. Let's have some coffee. So finally, number 10, be patient, be respectful, and have fun. So this is supposed to be fun. Like we're not doing this because we have to. Maybe some of us have to. Maybe you are being forced to collaborate, but hopefully not. You're doing this because you want to do it. You're doing this because you want to play music. You're doing this because you want to work with other people and you want to stretch your horizons. You want to get out of your comfort zone. So because of that, then make sure you're actually enjoying it and having fun and just enjoy the process and have fun making music. Because if you're not, and if you get impatient and if you get frustrated, then it's going to A, come out in the song. Song won't sound good if you're feeling bad and if you're having a bad time. And B, it's not worth it. It's not worth your time or the time of other people to not actually enjoy an experience like this. And there's a saying that says, the best people in a studio are the ones that are a good hang, which just means that they're good people to hang out with. Like you don't want to be working with someone that's an artistic diva that wants everything to be perfect. Not going to be a good hang. And you don't want to hang out with someone that's, sloppy and just doesn't care and has no drive or determination. Not going to be fun. Won't be a good hang. Anyway, that is my top 10. So hopefully that already gave you a little bit of an idea, got the juices flowing, got the brain ticking over about how you will collaborate, and will help you get started on your next collaboration. So I did promise we'd be about 15 minutes. We're at about 19 because I'm always talking a little bit more than I mean to, but there is our top 10. So where we're at, we've had our story, we've had our summary. It is time to jump over into our live chat and say hello to the folks who are kind enough to actually be here live with us today. So let's chat to who we've got here. We've got Clearly Epic, which is my man Steve, who is over from the Garageband Users Facebook group, who I was just talking about. Legend, hello to you. Puddintain, we've got Prod by Gibbs, hello to you. Blindside, my man Blindside. Check out Blindside. He want to collab with you, Pete. We need to collab together. Blindside, an amazing hip-hop, R&B rapper, artist. Check out his channel. I don't say that lightly. I don't do sort of just random. If someone comes on here and says, hey, promote my channel, I don't believe in that. None of that sub for sub stuff. But Blindside has good music. Check out his stuff. Sorry. Steve had shared that link and then asked me to hold it for review. So I'm actually going to show that now. and hope that that actually worked. It's put it way back up in the chat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste that here right now so that you'll know, so that you can come back and grab that. We've got Kenneth Briggs. Hello to you. Mary Sarah. Hello. How are you going? Hope you're doing well. Goth Demon 666. You're late. Yes, I know. Tardy slip for you. Watch out there. And Creative Source, which is Mr. Mike Enjo. Welcome to you. We've just been talking about our recent collaborations. So Creative Source, Mike Enjo is the gentleman who I did the recent collaboration with, and he said drinks tea. He loves to drink his tea, and it's kind of his thing. I'm trying to make coffee my thing. Let's be honest, coffee's already my thing, as you can probably tell by how much and how quickly I talk. But yeah, now that I've got my cool Studio Live Today mug, I'm going to be able to drink a lot more. Maybe I need to send you one of these, Mike. Since we did our collaboration, you can sip your tea from a Studio Live Today mug. Mr. Ron Ward, hello to you. Carlos Castro is here as well. Earthling is here, and I think I've said hello to everyone. Yeah, so Mary Sarah said her tip for collaborating on originals is to use Google Document for lyrics. Everyone can see the lyrics and suggest or make edits. What a great tip. And yeah, we talked briefly about the tools that you use, and that's definitely one that I recommend, using some sort of online collaboration tool. And Google Docs is awesome because most people have a Google account, a Gmail account. Most people, I don't need that plugged in. Most people have the ability to have a Gmail account to collaborate. You've got documents, you've got the spreadsheets, the Sheets app, if you want to use that as well. You've got the ability to share that in real time. And it's actually, if you've never used it, it's very cool. You can actually all be editing one document. It gets a wee bit confusing sometimes, but yeah, it does work. And I recommend using something like that for everyone to be on the same page. Someone running the board. So I mentioned, can someone run the board for me? And Steve said, yeah, can you do it from the USA? Possibly not. It might be a little bit, anything's possible. We're talking about online collaborations here, so anything is possible. Earthlink says, Roger Waters made some fantastic music with Pink Floyd while he was frustrated and angry. Yeah, I guess that's a good point is, yeah, sometimes some artistic people, when they are frustrated, angry, drunk, whatever, they make better music. So yeah, the thing about rules and the thing about things that I say is that, yeah, take the 80-20 rule on everything. That's why I never say, here are my 10 rules for creating music or my 10 rules for mixing, because every rule is made to kind of be broken, and everything can be different. Anyway, so hello to everyone. Yeah, good information, good suggestions there. If anyone does have any questions, or if anyone has any other tips as we go through the show here, or again, if you are here after the show and you're watching on the replay, that is also cool too. Drop your comments down in the comments section below, and we will come back to those, because again, I want to learn, and I learn as much from you as I learn from other people, as I learn from myself, or as you may learn from me. Be lifelong learners, and you will be your best person. I'm sprouting out the positive mantras today, aren't I? Anyway, let's go back and let's do some deep diving now into the 10 of these that we've talked about, because we've got a bit of time here. We've got time to actually talk about how things worked and how things can work, as I squeak my chair, when you're doing some sort of online collaboration. So let's go back and talk about the number one, which is the ownership of the end result. Now, this one you might be thinking, Pete, don't get so harsh, like just mellow out, dude. We don't need to worry about this whole monetizing thing. Yeah, you don't, as long as you don't. And that may sound weird, but as long as everyone is on that page. You've probably seen this in online forums and groups as well, where there are some people that are there to have a good time, to meet other people, to share music, to create music, and to have fun. And then there are other people who are there, and the first post that they'll put on there is, how do I make money in the music business? I want to be famous. How do I release my first song? So there are different levels of desires from different people when it comes to actually producing music. So that is one thing to keep in mind. Not everyone is going to be the same. So make sure that you have that defined at the start. So for the 5 of us, we were pretty clear. We were doing a cover song, so it wasn't our original work anyway, so we're not going to be releasing it and making millions on royalties. In fact, if we released it and tried to make millions, it would all go to the estates of the various folk. Some of them are still around, but you know what I mean. So it would go to the Travelling Wilburys and their next of kin. So keep that in mind though, because you might find that someone wants to collaborate and then they're like, I'm gonna release this now, and then they might not put you as a featured artist, and then there's the awkwardness that you have between that. You just don't want to get caught in that. I've always said, if you set expectations early, and this is good advice for life. I got this advice early on, and I try to go with this. It's much easier to set expectations and then call back to those expectations than it is to try and sort of repair the damage after someone has done something, making an assumption. And you know what they say about when people assume? Yeah, it makes an ass out of you and out of me. So don't assume. Make sure you have that clarity of what you want the end project to be. Is it just for fun? Is it going to be something that you want to actually do professionally? And if it is, then make sure that you have that early on. All right. Number 2, around the producer. And I'll throw this out to Ron, who's produced that, and as I said, to Mike, who's here on the stream, who produced the video that I did. It is just super important to have that one person. Now, you can say the whole point of collaborating is for everyone to be involved, and I couldn't agree with you more, but I also just think that if you have everyone calling the shots, that you can actually get yourself into a lot more trouble than if you just have one person that's managing things. Doesn't mean they have to do all the work. Doesn't even mean they make all the decisions. It just means that if there is something that needs to be done, something that needs to be coordinated, that you've got one person doing that. So when, like I said, when there's 2 people, it becomes quite easy. I was working with Mike on a project for his channel, and just a little hint here, little teaser. Perhaps we're working on another project. Perhaps there'll be one on my channel that perhaps I will be the producer of. Anyway, that is the sort of thing that you need to keep in mind, is who is actually running it between those 2 people. When you've got 3, 4, 5, it gets even more complex. So it's actually more important to have a producer. It is why there is a producer on. You might think, well, you've got the mixing engineer, you've got the artist. Why do you need a producer when you're making music? It is because you need someone that is making the decision, someone that is accountable for the decision, because the artist's going to have their ideas, the mix engineer is going to have their ideas. Having a producer that just walks in and says, here's what it is, and maybe they're more collaborative than that, or maybe they're very directive and they say, I'm producing this track, this is what we're doing. It just makes sure that you have that clear direction. So that's my advice anyway. And as I said before, keep my advice in mind. So I'll just check back after every couple of these, since we're doing a deep dive. I'll check back to see if there's any additional things. So Earthlings is perhaps not the right stream to ask, but could you cover as quick as you want the basic use of compression in a nutshell? Well, first of all, when you're compressing, don't do it in a nutshell, because the reverberation. You knew I had to go there, right? Yeah, look, this is going to probably not take the whole hour. So if you can hold that, I will come back at the end and I'll talk a bit about compression, because it is important. And it is something like when you're collaborating. I did talk about, in fact, why don't we cover it when we get to sort of the technical stuff, which we're actually doing now. So good idea. Software and platforms. So I mentioned it briefly before, and here's where I'll start promoting some of my own stuff. So I did a video about how to collaborate in GarageBand recently, which is how to actually use the project sharing. And the project sharing in GarageBand is actually super cool, because what you can do is you save your project in GarageBand on your iPad or your iPhone, you put that on iCloud, and then you send an email to any other people you want to collaborate with. And I used this with Dan Baker in another collaboration, which maybe we'll talk a bit more about later. And I've used it with the guys on this particular collaboration and with other folks as well. But I actually did a video. If you search Pete John's collaboration, and as usual, I haven't been organized and already got a link for it, but I'll try to get a link and put it down there. So yeah, if you want to actually collaborate, then you can actually do that directly in the project. Now, it comes with its own set of pitfalls, which is probably the other thing that I know that Ron and Steve and myself grapple with, which is that if you have more than one person working on that version, your version control becomes very tricky. So you tend to have all of these, and I've still got on my iPad, I've still got all of these different versions that are like date, version 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because it creates a new version every time someone makes a change that doesn't match someone else's, so that you don't overwrite changes, and that just gets tricky. So what we tended to do, because we're all sort of using GarageBand iOS, we'll just say, okay, I'm recording these tracks in this window of time, and then I'll give it to you, and then you record your tracks in that window of time. So that way, we only have one person in the project at any given time. That works better for us. If you can just all be open at the same time and go your hardest, try it. You know what? You won't know until you try. So you can definitely do that. The other thing to think about is that we had one, so Brian was using GarageBand on Mac, so he had to actually bring the project over, and Mac and iOS don't talk completely nicely together, because there's some differences between the two, which I won't go into in super detail here, but just keep in mind that you won't always be able to share directly between the iOS and the Mac version of GarageBand, or between any other platform. So sometimes you do need to actually export the project and then record your stems or your parts, and then import those back into the project. So What do I mean by stems? Well, I've got a whole video about how to export stems, which explains what stems are. So if you search Pete Johns stems, and again, I really have to watch these afterwards and go back and put in a little like legend with all the links. I should be writing down the timestamps right now. So if you search for that, you'll learn how to do that. So you can export your stems from whatever software you're using and then import those as just individual WAV files into your tracks, and then you can mix those in with your other tracks. So they're kind of the two main ways you can go about it. The other thing to think about with software and platforms is to make sure that you are, I've lost my train of thought here, to make sure that you know what different software people are using and that I've completely lost my train. I had a really great point. Just hold that and maybe I'll think about it and come back to it later. But yeah, software and platform, make sure you're encoding at the same sort of bit rate and sample rate. So standard these days is still pretty much 44.1 kilohertz, 24-bit. So if that doesn't mean anything to you, just go to your settings and select those. Because if you're doing it at 44.1, someone else is recording at 48 kilohertz, someone else at 96 kilohertz, you try to smush those together, you're going to come into some trouble. So keep things as consistent as you can, understanding that you are going to be in different sort of software and platforms as well. No, we didn't talk about compression, but we'll come back to that. I think that's a little bit later. Process. So the central owner and the others, and then others sending stems or sharing the project. So we've kind of covered a lot of that when we're looking at the software and platforms. But yeah, just make sure you know what your process is going to be. This was my point. How are you going to share that information? So when I first sort of started doing music and digital music, you would literally have to share by getting a hard drive and recording your songs and then pulling out that hard drive. Now, I don't know if anyone remembers these, but these were like the literal hard drives that you put inside your computer. You'd have these little docks where you'd actually like pull them out, the whole dock out of your desktop computer. You'd take them to someone else's and you'd like plug it in. This was before USB even, and you'd sort of plug it into there. It was weird. Anyway, we don't have to do that now because we have cool things like Dropbox, and we have Google Drive, and we have iCloud Drive, and we have OneDrive. So we have a heap of online storage platforms that you can use. So what do I suggest? Well, I suggest that you upload your file. Don't try and email a WAV file or a project file. They're too big. You're going to come into trouble. So what I suggest is to actually upload them to something like a Dropbox, and then other people can download them from there. They can then change them, they can re-upload them, and you can share them all within that one space. It works really well, it's really effective, and it means that there's none of those sort of version control issues you have with emails. And, oh, I sent you that version last week. Have you checked your email? No, it's in my spam filter, blah, blah, blah. Just upload to Dropbox, Google Drive, one of those cloud platforms. All of them give you free space up to a certain level, so try them out and use those. You'll find it a lot easier. Communication. We've kind of covered most of the things about communication, so making sure that you have a central point to communicate and that you are really honest with folks, but also really encouraging and kind, because keep in mind that you won't always be collaborating with people that are perhaps at the same level as you, or perhaps you're collaborating with people that are already at a higher level than you. So being respectful to people and their feedback and their opinions, but also making sure that at the same time, it's actually okay to say, that last recording you didn't quite match this. What do you think about redoing it? Like, you need to have the honesty to be able to actually provide that feedback. If you don't, you end up at the end of the project with a whole bunch of things that didn't work. Now, I think in my recent collaboration, the folks were probably too kind to me. I probably would have suggested that they be a bit harder on me, because I did a pretty average job of it came out well because Ron mixed it really well, but the guitar wasn't recorded particularly well. And the lyrics, there was like a whole section where I said the wrong word. Thankfully, Ron kind of just rode the fader down and muted me out for that. I think it was hold your body, and I said put your body next to mine and dream on. So yeah, I got that lyric completely wrong. So I wouldn't have minded at the time had they come back and said, Pete, re-record that vocal because you got the words wrong. I tend to get the words wrong quite a bit when I'm singing. Not a great habit for a singer to have, to get words wrong. All right, end dates. I'm going to, at the risk of ranting really hardcore about setting time-bound goals, which is something that I am super big on, have an end date in mind. Things will fill the amount of space that you give them. I'll give you, okay, I'm going to rant. I'll give you the quick example of this. Have you ever had a school assignment, a work project, something that you needed to get done by a date, and you think, oh, I've got 6 weeks to do this, and then you wait and you wait and you wait, and you don't do it, or you start on it and you're working on it and you're working on it, you're working on it. How often have you actually finished that within 2 weeks and gone, tick, that's done? No, you've usually either done it over that whole period of time, or more likely, spent 5.5 weeks procrastinating and then 3 days cramming it all in because you haven't got around to starting it. So what that is that's a concept that is that the work will expand to fill the time that you have. So if you give yourself a set period of time to do something, guess what? You will spend that amount of time doing something. If you give yourself an infinite period of time to do something, you will spend an infinite amount of time doing it. So give yourself a realistic but aggressive or assertive time-bound goal to actually achieve something. When I'm putting videos out, at the moment I'm putting out 1 video every day, sometimes 2. So I know that I've got to get a video out. So if I didn't have that as my goal, then I would not be putting a video out every day, because I'd be like, oh, I'm not quite right. I want to fix that little bit. I blubbed that line a little bit. That audio was a little bit too quiet. I might sort of remaster that. No, it is done. It's the best it can be. And again, it's the 80-20 rule. Once again, it's the diminishing returns. Once you've done that 80%, you're there. I'm not saying settle for 80%. I know people get me wrong with this. They're like, are you saying aim for mediocrity? No, I'm saying that beware that you can actually do most of your work in 20% of the time and then spend 80% of the time faffing around with it. So go really hard for that 20% and then maybe just spend an extra 10% fine-tuning it, because as soon as you go into that last bit, it's diminishing returns. And you will have known this on your own songs, your own mixes. You do your first mix. Mix 1 sounds good. Mix 2 sounds great. Mix 3 sounds awesome. Mix 4 doesn't sound any different. Mix 5, you're not quite sure about. Mix 6, 7, 8, 9... You then listen to mix 9 and then you go back to mix 3 and you go, I prefer mix 3. Have you done that? I do that all the time. And there's a famous story about Michael Jackson when he was producing Billie Jean, and they were up to like mix number, I don't know, 70, 80, 90, whatever it is. And then Quincy Jones, is that the producer? Am I thinking of the right people? Anyway, comes in and says, let me hear mix 2 or let me hear mix 3. And then they play that and they're like, yeah, go with that one. So it just goes to show that sometimes that early when the creative juices are flowing, when you're getting things sounding right, that's when you should stop. So that was a long way of saying, set yourself time-bound goals, have an end date, or you can end up going on forever, which cannot be good. Alrighty, let's see if we've got any other questions or comments over here. What kind of file is an Apple loop? Because it's funny how you can change the key or speed of the loop, but you can't speed up or slow down the WAV file. Do you have any tips or trick to help me? Yeah, so this is from Prod by Gibbs. The Apple loops are very strange, aren't they? Because you can, it's weird that GarageBand has sort of time stretching and things that you can do within those loops, but it kind of uses the same sort of thing as the sampler does. So it doesn't always sound exactly right. It doesn't always work, but you're right. You can actually change the pitch of those and they'll still match. So it'll actually stretch them out. Whereas if you put your own samples in there, can't do that. You can't change the time at all. So yeah, maybe it's something that they'll introduce in the future. At the moment though, if you're using the Apple loops, yep, you can change the pitch a little bit. If you change it too much, they start sounding distorted. So you can go probably up to 5 tones up and down. If you go like octaves, they start sounding very weird, especially things like, well, you wouldn't do drum loops and things, but yeah, they can be hard. So yeah, it's probably one to talk a little bit more about in detail in another video. But yeah, it is interesting that the Apple loops can actually be stretched and others actually can't. So yeah, we might be able to return back to that one in a minute. So Mary Sarah says, so did you share WAV files or GarageBand project when uploading? So we did a bit of both. So for those of us that were on GarageBand iOS, we shared the GarageBand iOS project on iCloud. So Ron originally shared it with Steve, Steve with Ron. So Steve did the drum track and some of the MIDI instruments. Sent it over to Ron, who did something. It landed at me with some basic rhythm parts, and I recorded the guitars and the vocals. Then I shared it back, or I saved it back in, because once it's sort of been shared with you, when you make changes, they update on the other person's project. So at different stages, Steve and Ron had shared GarageBand project files, and then Ron managed it, I believe, using WAV files with Brian. So maybe sent the project, and then Brian recorded and then sent the WAV files back. I wasn't part of that part. So maybe next time I need to be the producer, and then I need to actually work through that. Might give me some more experience. And yeah, and Ron actually says that it gives people experience producing as well. Absolutely. So Ron is now Mr. Producer. He is my He is my producing person. Goth Demon 666 says, I have no idea what's going on. Oh, okay. Sorry, did I go off on a really weird tangent? I probably did. I have a habit of doing that. Let's get back on track, shall we? Alrighty, so we talked about, we're up to number 6, which was our goal for an end date. Let's go to number 7, keeping your levels low. Now, I'm actually recording a video about this at the moment, so I'll go off on a slight tangent here. Getting your gain staging right, and this is I'll throw a plug in for Mike Enjo and Creative Source here because he's got a great video about gain staging. But if you don't understand gain staging, it's basically what your input volume is going all the way through your chain. So when you record something, you have the volume. So let's say you got your guitar, you have your volume set on your guitar, you then plug that in an interface. You change the volume on your interface. Depending what digital audio workstation you're using, you might have an input volume there as well. You'll then have an output volume on your digital audio workstation that you then may have an output volume to your headphone amp or on your interface or on your mixer or on your speakers. So there's a bunch of different places where you can set volume. The key thing to keep in mind is to record at a level that is going to be audible. You don't want it to be so low down that it can't be usable, but you definitely don't want it to be hot. And I say this a bunch. You don't want to be clipping your signal. You don't want to be distorting. You don't want to have especially your input gain, you don't want that set too loud. Especially in the digital world, it is so much easier to bring something up. Now that we've got nice preamps, even your Steinberg UR12s, even an interface like this has got a really nice, clean, quiet preamp. So you plug a microphone in there, just don't dial that input gain up too much, because if you do, you're going to get a really hot signal, and it's really hard to tame that after the fact. It is easy, though, to enhance that using the plugins and using EQ and using compression. So err on the side of keeping things low. Keep your levels low, and then it will help. You'll help the mixer, you'll help the person doing the mastering, you'll help the producer, you'll help other people as they record their tracks. Because if there's one thing I hear and see more than anything, it is actually trying to record things too loud, because either, you're recording on earbuds, so you just turn your volume up, turn the output volume up. Don't turn up your input volume. If you can't hear something, never turn up the input volume. Always turn up the output volume. That's a little piece of advice to keep in mind. But it goes along with this, because if you keep those volumes at a reasonable level, sort of 50 to 75% is kind of that sweet magic zone. If you're pushing 90, 100%, clipping up to 0 dB, it's going to sound horrible and it's not going to work for the mix. All right. Mastering, releasing, will there be a video? Pretty straightforward, but again, just keep in mind what sort of release you want to do. Are you releasing it just on SoundCloud? Are you going to do a YouTube video like Ron did for our project here? Is someone going to master it? If you are mastering, are you going to use software? Are you going to use an online service? I think Ron used BandLab for our project here. Are you going to use, what's the other one? Lander, which I only worked out the other day. It's L&R, Lander, get it? Left, right, stereo. Anyway, so are you going to use an online service, master it yourself, etc.? So make sure, again, that you're clear with what the end result's going to be. Or are you going to release it to Spotify? You're going to make $1 million and be the next big recording artist. Notice that I say next big recording artist, because I'm so old and out of the picture that I don't know who a big recording artist is. Anyway, let's move on here. Number 9, excuse me. Choosing your collaboration partners carefully. Now, I haven't had a bad collaboration. Maybe I need to go out and have one. Maybe that would be a good video. What I'll do is I'll just go to a random music collaboration group, and you all probably know the sorts of ones that I'm talking about. Just pick a Facebook or a Reddit group that has 20,000 members and lots of people saying, let's collab, and just collab with someone. It would be an interesting experiment, wouldn't it? Just to see what actually comes out of that. What is the collaboration? It'll probably be like a 9-year-old that wants to be a rap star or something. Anyway, but choose carefully. So know the people that you are going to collaborate with and get to know their music and make sure that it's the right fit. So Brian and Ron, who over on the Garageband users group, have done a heap of collaborations now. They're both into a lot of sort of old school rock. Sorry, Ron, making you show your age here. But they like the old style sort of 70s rock. And they've done a bunch of really good songs. They did Hotel California with a bunch of other folks. They've done, what was the one that I was thinking of the other day? I've completely brain blanked. Ron can let you know some of the ones they've done. But they've done a heap of different collaborations. They've all been very, very cool. But again, if one of those folks was really into like new age techno, should they be collaborating? Well, maybe. You may get the best sound ever. So yeah, you don't want to just go, no, I'm not going to do that because of different style, but make sure you kind of gel and you want to create the same sort of music as the people you're collaborating with. Very important that you don't. Don't collaborate with people that that's not going to work out. Ooh. Cold coffee. Maybe I should switch to tea. Maybe I might drink it a bit quicker. And number 10. So again, it goes without saying, but be patient, be respectful, and have fun. So yes, you're going to have a lot of patience to do this. You're going to have to just chill out, be calm, work out a way to get through things. There are going to be hurdles, there are going to be hiccups, there are going to be problems along the way. And I sort of alluded to the fact that I'd talk about some of these. So I'll talk about the two projects, and both of them were successful. So the video collab with Mike, so I said collab now, I'm like the kids. The video collaboration with Mike turned out really well, I think. I think it's a really cool video. I think Mike did a great job. And the music collaboration that we did, the Handle with Care, I think turned out really well as well. So I think that the end result was good, but there were definitely some challenges. So with Mike, we had, shall we say, a few little hurdles and hiccups. I wanted to set up a different camera setup than my webcam because I didn't quite like that. So I played around and he spent half an hour watching me set up different tripods and things. And then he had a problem where he was recording audio and his DAW cut out with like 10 minutes to go. So we missed a bit of the interview. We had to re-record it. So yeah, there are some things that can happen when you are doing these sort of things. But again, just go with the flow. We're in a digital environment where, you know, no one's having to pay for tape anymore. No one, like, if you don't capture something, it's not the end of the world. You can redo it. You can recapture it. If a file goes missing, backup. Okay, so here, have a backup system in place, especially for your files. This is good advice for everything, but if you are sharing a file, don't just share it off and then go, oh, I don't need that one anymore. Keep your versions. So save version 1, version 2, version 3. You never know when you might need to go back and pull just a stem, just an audio file from one of your earlier versions because it's been overwritten in a later version. So while you're working on the once you've done the project, yeah, you can get rid of a lot of your older files, but while you're working on the project, make sure that you have those backups in place so that if you do have issues like we had, you can go back to your backup. And again, if it all just doesn't work, then just do it again. Like, it's not all lost. Like 99% of the time you can redo something, and sometimes it even comes out better. There were some questions I did with Mike where we were like, oh, we lost those and we had to redo them, and they probably came out better the second time, in my view, because we were a bit more relaxed about it and it worked well. Anyway, that's from that side. So from the Handle with Care collaboration, there wasn't really much that didn't work well. Probably the project side of it. So when we were sharing the Garageband projects and we were getting different version numbers and different people were in it. So there was a little bit of challenging things around that. Probably the timing of things, because we're all on different parts of the world, that can be a little bit tricky to work out. So I would wake up and there would be this stream of stuff that had happened about it. And I'd just put a comment there going, hey guys, can I get the 2-minute version of what you've been talking about for the last 4 pages? And thankfully someone would say, yeah, Pete, we're just saying that Steve just recorded the drums. I'd be like, cool, gotcha. So yeah, things like that, just keeping up with the flow of how things are going. But yeah, if you're communicating, if you're taking it easy, if you're not worrying too much and not stressing about things. And the one final thing I'll say with this, so there have been collaborations done before where if you try to, I'm going to put this nicely, if you try to stick to the rules and you try to do things really rigid, it's probably going to fail. I'm going to relate this to a very weird thing, which is childbirth. I know, stay with me here for a moment. So when you go through childbirth, or when you're pregnant, not me, but when your wife or your significant other is pregnant, what they say to you, and they do this in all the classes, so they'll say, okay, map out what is your perfect childbirth. So give me your perfect childbirth plan. You go into the hospital, you've got nice soothing music, you're sitting in a nice relaxing spa bath, you go through all 2-hour labor, pops out, baby's happy, healthy, you get up, you go home. And then they say, what if you can't have the spa bath? What if you can't have the hospital? What if you're at home and you have to call the midwife out? What if you can't have, and you go through that until it's like, you come to the point where you say, you may not have everything. You may not have anything of this stuff. So it's about dealing with the adversity or dealing with things not going perfectly well or exactly as you'd planned, and how you're actually going to cope. How do you have the resilience to go with things when they don't go to plan? How does this relate? Well, when you are doing a collaboration, you might say, we are going to collaborate by doing this. We're all going to record these beautiful WAV files. They'll all be sent to one person. They will mix them seamlessly together. They will all fit perfectly. No file will ever get lost. No file will get corrupted. No file will be over compressed and therefore clipping, and we have to do some fancy editing. Everything's going to work fine. That's not going to always happen. So again, I didn't mean for this to get super philosophical, but it's really important to just think and have that mindset going in to say, here's what we would like to happen, but it's not necessarily going to be exactly that way. If it doesn't work out exactly that way, then we can pivot and we can try something else. And yeah, I've been watching a few these sort of motivational videos, and it's the kind of thing that you don't just sort of succeed and fail. There's not sort of a yes, no, success, failure. There's success, and then there's usually learning. So if you don't succeed, if you don't get something done, then you're usually learning something. So a failed collaboration could actually be called a really good learning experience. And that's probably the point that I want to leave off on before we get into some final questions here, is to say that it might not work. I say this about writing your first song, recording your first song, releasing your first song. Your first collaboration is probably not going to be your best collaboration. You will find that it is difficult and challenging and things won't go right, but it will be your first collaboration and nothing can change that. And then your second, third, fourth are going to get better and easier because you're off that zero, you're off the mark, and you are actually starting to create. So keep that in mind when you're collaborating, when you're thinking about collaborating with other people. Take it slowly, communicate well, have fun, be patient, and it is a super fun experience. I can guarantee it, and hopefully Mike, Ron, Brian, Steve, and the people I'm forgetting at the moment agree with me there, that it is super fun to actually do, and you do learn a lot about yourself and a lot about other people by collaborating. Alrighty, let us jump back and see what folks are saying here. So we talked, Mr. Danny Elliott, hello to you. Yes, so you were just helping out with some of the loops and some of the loop questions that we had before. So Danny, thank you for chiming in on that, and welcome to you. And do I have a ballpark number, Pete? I usually go for -11. Yeah, so in terms of your leveling, most of your meters go 0, -6, -12. So yeah, if you're hitting around about that -12, like there's a reason that your mixers, so I'm looking at my mixer over here, there's a reason that they sort of go into the yellow when you get over about -12, is that's giving you the warning, -12 to -6, and then some of them will be orange between -6 and 0, and then you got your red, which is your clipping. So keep that in mind. But yeah, good question there. Ballpark, keep it around -12 on your input gain and you'll be pretty good. Love the classic rock covers. Paint It Black by the Stones. Yes, that was really, really cool. Love that one. So this is Ron Ward, who's on the chat here, and has done some great covers and some great collaborations. And Ron says the wrong lyrics added character to the track. Thank you. That's very very kind of you to help me out with that. So Danny Elliott says, I'm currently redoing one of my first recordings, a rock version of Wild World by Cat Stevens. Is that the Hey Baby Baby It's a Wild World? That's a really good song. I would love to hear that. Make sure you share that with me and the rest of the group here, and you'll be good. What have we got here? So Earthling, lay an egg and sit on it for 9 months or so. Is that in relation to my childbirth rant? Yeah. Yes, okay. Good one. Yes, the gestation period is about 9 months. I don't know if anyone's laying... No, what is it? Lay an egg and sit on it for 9... And don't sit on your newborn baby either. Really, really bad idea. Where did we get so off track with this one? Okay, let's bring it back on track and let's finish up. So I wanted to say thank you to everyone who has been here on the live stream. It has been great to have your interaction, your comments, your questions, your suggestions. If you have been here on the replay, then no problems. You are also awesome, and you haven't missed out because we have a comment section. It is right down below. After you've hit the like button and hit share and send it to all your friends, you can go to the comments and then you can let me know what you thought. If you thought I missed the mark on this one and that it wasn't relevant, I'm happy to hear that too. It's all feedback. Like I say, succeed or learn. I'm happy to learn from a lot of these different topics, but this is one that a lot of folks have asked for, and a lot of people have said, hey, I'm looking to collaborate. What are some of the things I need to consider? And I thought, because I've just done it a couple of times, it's a good time, a good opportunity to speak about those collaborations and to help folks learn from that. So this is the 1 minute. I say this every week. I do 60 minutes in these live streams. I do like 59 minutes of content and 1 minute of shameless self-promotion. So let's do the shameless self-promotion and then we'll say goodbye and finish off. So if you want to check out more of this sort of content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, which you can do down the bottom there. You can also go to studiolivetoday.com to check out all of the other content I have there. If you would like to buy any gear, so if you're in the market for a new audio interface, a new pair of headphones, a new microphone, a new anything, you can head to studiolivetoday.com/gear, which is GEAR. Don't know why I'm spelling gear. And that is my gear guide. So that has all of the gear that I use, that I recommend, that is usable and compatible in iOS, and that works really well. If you want some merch, like my Studio Live Today mug here, although, as I mentioned before, they're only available in black at the moment online. Go to studiolivetoday.com/merch and make sure you check out the collaborations. So I will link to the Handle with Care collaboration, which you can check out here, and I'll try to remember to put a card at the end of this video. And yeah, also check out Mike Enjo's channel, Creative Source. If you haven't checked that out already, really, really cool channel. Lots of great content there, and go over and chat to Mike because he is a nice guy as well, and will also answer your comments. Which is a good thing because I love the interactive component that we have here. So there you go. That is the 1 minute of shameless self-promoting. I'm nearly out of time here, so I wanted to say thank you once again, and thank you for everyone's contributions here today. Get out there and start collaborating yourself. You will have a fun time. You will learn. It'll be a great experience for you. Have a great day, evening, night, everyone. I'll catch you next time. And we'll also answer your